How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf. Friends, what Daf you want to study today? How about Daf 18, Daf Yud Ches, Daf 18 of Masechta Kiddushin. Friends. Yo, friends. Yeah, friends, I feel like the Dafs recently have been like a little funny. Like, they're not like super hard, but they're not super easy. They're like somewhere in between. Well, what do you want me to tell you? We're going to do a daf that's somewhere in between, talking about Amra Ivriyas and that kind of stuff. And it's relatively interesting. I'd say it's relatively interesting. Okay. I'm going to start Daf Yud Ches Amud Aleph. Uh-oh. Oh no, is somebody here? Uh-oh, someone's here. Whoa. Alright. Hey, Mark. How you doing?
The doctor said I'm doing great, so...
Oh, that's good.
Great, man.
Did you ask him about me?
I asked him about you. He said you were schizophrenic. He said you need to be institutionalized.
You want to be on my podcast?
Huh?
You want to be on my podcast?
Are you on your podcast?
What?
Are you on your podcast?
I'm just getting started. So you could be on it for as long as you want. You could be on it the whole time, or just
Be in your way.
be in my way. Depends where you are. If you're right here, you might be in my way. Yeah.
Oh, can I sit on the sofa? I want to be in the background.
Yeah. Just don't play the guitar.
I'll sing.
It'll be distracting.
I can sing.
Ooh.
It's not too loud.
It's not too loud. The truth is, sanding actually probably wouldn't be very distracting. If you can maybe sand when the neighbors are going up the stairs and being annoying, that would be great. You drown them out.
How about if I put those nails, put a few more nails in that hat?
Ooh, a few nails. That's a different story.
Okay, so I won't do that today, but I'm going to sand.
No, you do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. I'll just complain to the people.
I'm going to sand and bond roll.
Alright.
Okay? Then tomorrow I'll paint.
Alright.
Want coffee?
Huh?
Want coffee?
No, I already had 3 coffees today.
3 coffees?
Yeah.
And 2.
Wow.
Yeah, the doctor said I look great.
Oh, that's good. I haven't been to the
He
doctor
said,
in
I'll give you
ages.
this and I'll give you that. And he looked and he
Ah.
said, that's great. Just keep taking what I gave you. Finish
Ah.
it off.
Oh, that's good. Alright, Mark, I gotta get back to these people. They're gonna get bored of our conversation.
Oh, sorry.
So, alright, well, friends, that was Mark. Thanks for being on the show.
Ask them if they want coffee.
Friends, do you want coffee? They probably have their own coffee. Alright, here we go. Mark, we're talking about Amma Ivriyas. That's like if a guy sells his daughter to be a maidservant for 6 years. So here we go.
You have to let her free on Shemitah, don't you?
Yovel, yeah. Yeah.
On Yovel?
Yovel, yeah.
Shemitah.
What? What'd you say?
Shemitah.
Well, Yovel. Shemitah's every 7 years. Yovel's every 50 years.
I know, but you have to set the slaves free on Shemitah.
At Yovel.
On Shemitah.
Yovel.
Yovel, the land goes back.
And the people.
No, it's on Shemitah, I think.
Bishnas HaYovel hi tashuvu ish el achuzato.
What are the 4 things that happen on Shemitah?
Shemitah's ksafim, the loans go back. Shemitah's karkaos, that's the land.
You can't. The land has to rest. The king has to read the Torah.
Oh yeah.
And the slaves are set free.
No way, dude.
Wait, dude.
No. Dude, I've been freaking studying this for like... No.
You're reading the Gemara?
Yeah, the Gemara, yeah.
Try the Torah, man. Read the Torah.
No. Sheish shanim ya'avod u'bashvit yetzeh lachofshi chinam. Maybe that's what you're thinking of. The 7th year he goes free after working 6 years, but that could be Shemitah, it could be not Shemitah.
I thought it was Shemitah, but I'll double check it.
Double check. Get back to me.
I'll get back to you.
Yeah. All right. Friends, Mark's going to double check. He'll get back to us. All right. All right, Mark, I'm going to get started over here.
Let's go to the cemetery.
Let's go to the cemetery. Yeah. Tanu Rabbanan. So the rabbis taught. Yesh be'ivri she'en ba'ivriya. So there are rules that come to by an Evid Ivri that are not by an Amma Ivriya. Yesh be'ivriya she'en ba'ivriya. And there are halachos when it comes to the Amma Ivriya that don't apply to the Evid Ivri. Yesh be'ivri shehu yotze. Mark.
Yeah.
I'm literally Shehu Yotze Bashanim. He goes free after 6 years. Uva Yovel. And at Yovel. Uve Mitata Adon, or if the master dies.
Or if Yovel comes before the 6 years.
Oh, yeah, totally. But not Shemitah, Yovel.
Okay, so 6 years and then they go free.
Yeah, 6 years, yeah.
Okay, I thought it was Shemitah, but I'm going to double check.
Double check. Okay, Shu Yotze Bashanim. So he goes free after 6 years. Vayovel, as well as at the Jubilee year. Uvmitata Adon, and if his master dies. Ma she'en kein ba'ivriya, which is not the case by an Amma ha'ivriya. By the way, I don't even know if the microphone worked for all that. Who knows? My microphone's been whack. It means ma she'en kein ba'ivriya, which is not the case by an Amma ha'ivriya. The Gemara is going to have to explain what that means if it's not the case, because the truth is these things do apply to Amma ha'ivriya. 6 years, Yovel, Misa Sa'adon. V'yesh ba'ivriya she'arei ivriya yotza b'simanin. And there are, where am I? Okay, fine. V'yesh ba'ivriya, and there are things that are by an Amma ha'ivriya which don't apply to an Eved ha'ivriya. She'arei ivriya yotza b'simanin. That an Amma ha'ivriya goes free at puberty, which doesn't apply to an Eved ha'ivriya. V'einim keres. V'nishnes. Additionally, an Amma Ivriya cannot be sold by her father and then sold nachamo, sold again. Umifadin osa bal korcho. And we can redeem her against his will. The question is, against whose will? Against the father's will? Against the Adon's will? Okay. Masha enkein ba'ivri, which is not the case by an Eved Ivri. So, okay, there's things that by an Eved Ivri that don't apply to an Amma Ivriya, and there are things that apply to an Amma Ivriya that don't apply to an Eved Ivri. Amar Mar. Okay, so we said yesh be'ivri she'en be'ivriya, that there are things by an Eved Ivri that don't apply to an Amma Ivri. And we said, for example, he goes free after 6 years. By Yovel, Misa Sa'adon. We have a contradiction. Yisera olav Amma Ivriya shekona atzma besimonin. But one second, we have, our Mishnah had said that there is an additional factor when it comes to the freedom of an Amma Ivriya, which is that she goes free b'simanin. She goes free when at puberty. Meaning, in addition to all of the things that we listed, 6 years, Yovel, Misa Sa'adon, in addition to those, there's also the puberty factor. So it would sound like those things apply to her as well. So why are we saying that they apply to only an Eved Ivri but not an Amma Ivri? Amr of Sheshis says, if Sheshis kegon sheyada. So if Sheshis says, well, the reason why those things don't apply to an Amma Ivri is because we're talking about an Amma Ivri asher yada. Who can tell me what Yi'ud is? Yi'ud would be that an Adon can marry his Amma Ivri, right? An Adon buys an Amma Ivriya from her father, and if he wants, he could then, make her his wife. So in the event that he makes her his wife, which we're going to learn about more on today's daf, in the event that he makes her into his wife, so then she goes free, in the way that a married woman goes free, and therefore she no longer goes free in the way that an Eved goes free with 6 years, etc. So Ye'ada Pshita Gita Baya. But one second, if we're talking about where he married her, so obviously she doesn't go free in those ways anymore, because she would need to get at this point if she's married. So Ma'adetema, I may have thought to say, Lo Livatle Hilchusa Mina. Well, I may have thought to say that, no, even, once an Amma Ivriya, always an Amma Ivriya, and then if an Amma Ivriya goes free after 6 years, so even an Amma Ivriya after Yud would go free after 6 years. Nisht. We say that, once she gets married, so then, right, if there's Yi'ud, so then none of those, 6 years, Yovel, right, those things don't apply. Now she would go free in the way that, she would just, be divorced, or, divorced, or widowed, or whatever. But if that's the case, but if we're talking about an Amma Ha'ivriya who is married now, so then why are we saying that she's Yotze's B'simanim? She's Yotze's Beget. So Achikamer im lo yi'ada, but if he didn't do Yi'ud, so then Yotze af B'simanin, so then she would go out with Simanin in addition to, Shanim, Yovel, Misa Sa'adon. Fine. Ve'enan imkeres v'nishnes. Okay, we say that an Amma Ivriya cannot be sold to be an Amma Ivriya and then go free after 6 years and then be sold Nachamol to be an Amma Ivriya. So, Michlal de Eved Ivri Nimkar Vinishne. So does that imply that an Eved Ivri, however, can be sold twice as an Eved Ivri? V'atani, we learn in the Brayso, B'kneivaso bilo b'chfilo, B'kneivaso bilo b'zamama, B'kneivaso kevin shenimkar pam achas shuvein iyata rasha lemochro. Let's read that again. we have a Brayso that says B'kneivaso bilo b'chfilo. Of course, we know that a ganif, a fellow who steals epis, so in addition to paying back the principal of what he stole, we find him that he has to pay twice as much as what he stole. So what if you have a fellow who is a ganif and he got caught and now they're forcing him to pay him back? Now he has enough to pay back the principal, he does not have enough to pay back the double. So the question is, do we sell him as an Eved Ivri to pay back, right? Because we need him to pay back the double. So we say no. Additionally, what if you have a fellow who testifies in court that Reuven stole $1,000 from Shimon? Turns out that they're Eidim Zomim. Turns out that they're specific kinds of false witnesses, of liars. In which case, just like they tried to make Reuven pay $1,000, so they themselves need to pay $1,000 to Reuven. So let's say he doesn't have $1,000. Would he be sold as an Eved Ivri? No. Right, v'lo b'zamamu, not as Eidim Zomim. B'gneiv also, kevin shenimkar pam achas, right, a singular theft. Once he's sold once, shuv ata rasha lemochro, you can't sell him nachamol as an Eved Ivri. So why are we saying that Davka and Amma Ivriya cannot be sold to be an Amma Ivriya twice? Apparently, an Eved Ivri oichit cannot be sold twice as an Eved Ivri. Amar Rava says, Rava lokasha, it's no problem. Kan b'gneva achas kan b'shtei gnevos. So it depends if it's one theft or two thefts. So what does one theft mean? Like, well, what if he stole $1,000, but he's only worth as an Eved, he's only a $500 Eved. It's a $500 Eved. So I might think if he stole an item that's $1,000, he himself is worth $500. Let him be an Eved for 6 years, which has a value of $500. Then let him be an Eved for another 6 years, which has a value also of $500, which would be the $1,000 total that he stole. So says Rava that when we say that he can only be sold as an Eved once, it means, when he steals something that's worth twice as much as he is, he doesn't do two terms as an Eved Ivri, only one. However, if he steals two objects, so, if he steals two items that are $500 each, and his 6 years of his service is only worth $500, but he stole two items each worth $500, so then he becomes an Eved Ivri he can do two terms in that capacity, right? So again, Amar Rava says, Rava, lo kasha kam b'gneva achas kam b'shtei gnevas. It depends. For one theft that's worth twice as much as he is, he would only do one round of being one stint as an Eved Ivri. But if he stole two items, each one as worth as much as 6 years of his service, so then he could be an Eved Ivri twice. Amalei Abaye says Abaye b'gnevaso tuva mashma. No, in his theft can mean, if he goes on a stealing spree, so and he steals two items, so even though he stole two items, he would only be an Eved Ivri once, because he's an Eved Ivri for his theft, right? For his stealing spree, he'll only be an Eved Ivri once, even if he stole two items. Rather, Abaye explains that one person. When it says one person and two people, it's a little confusing. At least the way Rashi explains it, it doesn't actually mean two people. It means the same person, but in two separate sort of acts of theft. Meaning if he stole two items, says Abaye, he would only do one term of being an Eved Ivri, even if each item itself, respectively, is worth as much as his of 6 years of his service. He would only be an Eved once for one spree. But what if he steals and then he's an Eved Ivri, and after 6 years he goes free, and then he steals Nachamol? So in that case, he would be able to become an Eved Ivri again. And that's what it means, meaning the same person at two completely different times, and he can return to being an Eved Ivri more than once in that case. Taner Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Ginevo Elef V'Shave Chomesh Meo. So this is interesting. If he stole something that's worth $1,000, but he himself is only worth $500, 6 years of his service is worth $500. Nimkar v'chozer v'nimkar. So says the Tanna Kama that actually he would be able to be sold. After 6 years, he'd go free. That was a value of $500. He stole $1,000. He could then do, or Tanna Kama is saying that he does do another 6-year term, and that would be a value of $1,000, which is what he stole. But if he stole $500, v'shave elef, and his value is $1,000, eino nimkar klal, he wouldn't be sold at all. Meaning, if he stole $500, but his 6 years of his service is $1,000, which would mean that $500 would be 3 years of his service, which is only half of the service of a term of an Eved Ivri, he wouldn't be an Eved Ivri at all. Rabbi Eliezer Omer says, Rabbi Eliezer, im hoya gnevo kineged mimkaro nimkar. Says Rabbi Eliezer, look, if he is worth, if 6 years of his service is $1,000, and he stole $1,000, perfect. He sold as an Eved Ivri. Stole $1,000, 6 years of his service is worth $1,000, sell him as an Eved Ivri for 6 years. The imlav, but if he stole a different value than what he's worth, whether it's less than what he's worth, whether it's more than what he's worth, eino nimkar, he will not be sold as an Eved Ivri. Amar Rava says, Rava b'haz achinu Rabbi Eliezer l'Rabbanan, and in this matter, Rabbi Eliezer was victorious over the rabbis. Demai shna gnevo chamish meus b'shave elef, because at the end of the day, what's the difference if he stole $500 but he's worth $1,000? De'ein nimkar, that he is not sold, right? We said that if he stole $500 and he's worth $1,000, which would mean that only 3 years, it would be worth only 3 years of his service. We don't sell him in that case. So dinimkar kulo amar achmana v'lo chetzo, because the Torah says that you sell him entirely and not half of him, not half a term, or the value of half of him. So achanami here also, when he's worth 500 and he steals 1,000, nimkar b'gnevaso. So nimkar b'gnevaso amar achmana, he's sold for what he stole. V'lo nimkar b'chatzi gnevaso, he's not sold for half of what he stole, right? Wow, sold. He's not sold for half of what he stole, right? If he's worth 500 and he stole 1,000, he's not sold for half of what he stole, which is interesting, right? Meaning it sounds like what the Gemara is saying, which is very interesting. This whole concept of, at least in Eved Ivri who's sold by Bezdin, if he sells himself, it's an Ander Ezach. But if it's sold by Bezdin would only sell a fellow as an Eved Ivri, it sounds like in a very limited case, where he's worth exactly as much as what he stole. So in that case, he could be sold as an Eved Ivri. But if he's worth more than what he stole or less than what he stole, it sounds like he wouldn't be sold as an Eved Ivri by Bezdin. By the way, Chevre, I restarted my phone. I wonder, like I don't know, earlier today or yesterday or something. I hopefully that'll make a difference with the microphone. I hope. Anyways, the last 2 days was modno, but okay, hopefully it's better now. Mufadan also Baal Korcho, and by an Ama Ivria we can redeem her against his will. The shaila is against whose will? So Rava thought to say against the will of the master. Okay, the master, right, the Odin purchased the Ama Ivria, and then we force him to free her. So Omar Lei Abai Mai Nihu. What's this case where we force him to? I mean, not to free her for nothing, but what's the case? So the Chosavna Le Shtar Admei. So maybe it's that the father writes an IOU, writes a document, and gives it to the Adon and says, "Look, I owe you. If she was sold for $500, I owe you $500. Amai." Why does that work? He's got a pearl in his hand and you're giving him a piece of pottery. Right now he has an Ama Ivria. She's working for him. He has the option to marry her. He's got something of value and you're giving him a piece of paper. An IOU. So Elo Amar Abai rather says Abai Bal Korchi Da'av. It means against the will of the father. Meaning if the father has the money to redeem his daughter, he must do it. He can't, if he doesn't have any, if he's destitute and he sells his daughter as an Ama Ivria, that's one thing. But if now he has the money to buy her back, he's got to do it. Mishum Pagam Mishpochet. because it's not good. The yentis. It's like that. They have like their they have like their thumbs on the pulse of the Amma Ivriya. They know it. The second it enters the father's mind to even consider selling his daughter as an Amma Ivriya, the yentis are already talking about it on Shabbos afternoon with the Diet Coke and the low-fat mandel bread. By the way, there's one thing, by the way, that I remember when I was going over the daf just before. I remember there's another thing about the yentis. You want to know? After they're done with the mandel bread and the Diet Coke, no, they don't get done with the mandel bread and the Diet Coke. They have enough. They're not running out. But after they're done talking about everybody, an hour before Shalosh Shudas, they get together for a Shmir Salosh and Shir. They get together for Shmir Salosh and Shir. So this is, anyways. So now, Yochi, Eved Ivri now, okay, where are we? Oh, so because we become Mishpacha, I mean, we don't need the yentis in the bungalow colony on Shabbos afternoon talking about this guy and his daughter and Amma Ivriya. So therefore, the faster he can buy her back, not that it'll make a difference for the yentis, but whatever it is, the faster, we can get her out and get her back. We do that. So so there you have it. So against the will of the father, that immediately once he has the money, we force him to buy her back. If that's the case, Eved Ivri Nami, Nachfinu Livnei Mishpache, Mishum Kam Mishpache. But why don't we say the Zelbazach? Why don't we say the same thing by an Eved Ivri? That we force his family to buy him back from being an Eved, right? A guy sells himself as an Eved Ivri, so we buy him back because of Kam Mishpache, the yentis. So, Hadar Azul Mizabin Nafshi. The thing is with the Eved Ivri, you'll redeem him. The next day he's going to sell himself again. So just, leave him alone. Hacha Nami Hadar Azul Mizabin La. But can't you say the same thing by the father? You're going to force him to redeem her. The next day he'll sell her again. So Hakatane Eina Nimkeres Vinishnes. But one of the things that we mentioned above was that she cannot be sold as an Amma Ivriya and then sold Nachamol. He can't sell her twice as an Amma Ivriya. So therefore, he sells her as an Amma Ivriya. If he has the money, we force him to buy her back, and he cannot sell her any more. Umani Rib Shimon. I'm just making sure I didn't lose the place. I don't think I did. Umani Rib Shimoni. And that is the opinion of Rib Shimon, that he cannot sell her as an Amma Ivriya and then sell her Nachamol as an Amma Ivriya. The Tanya, as we learn in a Brisa, Mecher Adam is Bito Liishus Vishone. A fellow can sell his daughter. What? Wait, what? He can be Mekadesh his daughter, right? So a father can be Mekadesh his daughter, accept Kesef Kiddushin on behalf of his daughter who is a Ketana, and then if she becomes an almana or a grusha from the Erison before she's married. Once she's married, she's out of his control. But before she's married, meaning when she's in me'orasa, when she's betrothed, if she becomes a grusha or an almana, he can accept kesef kiddushin nachamo on her behalf, right? The shifchus vishona, he can sell her as an amma ivriya, and then when she goes free after 6 years, he can sell her nachamo as an amma ivriya. The ishus acha shifchus, after she's an amma ivriya and she goes free after 6 years, he could then be makabel kesef kiddushin for her. Aval lo the shifchus achar ishus. However, says the Tanakama, she cannot be sold as a shifcha after she is, the kesef kiddushin. Meaning, if a father accepts kesef kiddushin for his daughter, and then she becomes an amana or a grusha, he cannot sell her as an amma ha'ivriya at that point. Okay, fine. Reb Shimon Omer, now says Reb Shimon, Kishem she'ein adam mocher es bito l'shifchus achar ishus, that just like a fellow cannot sell his daughter as an amma ivriya after she was betrothed, after he accepted kesef kiddushin, even if she becomes an amana or a grusha from Erison. Kach ein adam mocher es bito l'shifchus achar shifchus, says Reb Shimon that a fellow cannot sell his daughter as an amma ivriya after she was already an amma ha'ivriya. So if she was an amma ivriya and she goes free after 6 years, he can't sell her nachamo. We fluk to Dani Tanoi, and it's like the machlokas of the following Tanoim. The Tana is within a brayso big doba, right? They said amnochi lo yuchal lemochra big doba, that he can't sell her as in amo ha'ivriya big doba kevin sheperish taliso aleh shuv in Rashi lemochra de Rabbi Akiva. Says Rabbi Akiva that kevin sheperish taliso aleh, and we understand this to mean yi'ud, that if he sells her as an amo ivriya, and then the adon or the son of the adon is miyayid her, hariyat miyuedes li. And they are now, the Gemara is going to get into, are they married, are they engaged, right? Is it Erisin, is it Nisun, whatever it is. So let's assume for now, and let's just say for now it's Erisin. So Kevin Sheperish Alisa Alea, once he does, regardless of that, once he does Yi'ud, Shuv, in Rashai Limochra. At that point, he can no longer sell her as an Amma Ivriya. So we see, according to Rabbi Akiva, Ein Shifchus Achar Ishus, that once there was Yi'ud, even if she becomes then a grusha or an almana, the father cannot sell her as a ama ivriya anymore. Ein shifchus achar ishus. Rabbi Eliezer, or Mr. Rabbi Eliezer, bibogdo ba, kevin shebogad ba shuv in Rasha and Mochra. Once he betrayed her by selling her as an ama ivriya, he can no longer sell her as an Amma Ivriya. Ai ein shifchus achar shifchus. Once he sells her as an Amma Ivriya, so then after 6 years she goes free. He can't sell her nochamol as an Amma Ivriya. So we see that Rabbi Akiva is saying ein shifchus achar ishus. Rabbi Eliezer is saying ein shifchus achar shifchus. Okay. What are Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer arguing about? Rabbi Eliezer savar yesh aim lemasores, Rabbi Akiva savar yesh aim lemikra, Reb Shimon savar yesh aim lemikra v'lamasores. Interesting. You have 3 generations of, right? Reb Shimon was a student of Rabbi Akiva, who was a student of Rabbi Eliezer. Anyways, we've seen this before. This concept of yesh aim lemikra, yesh aim lemasores. Yesh aim lemikra means that what's important is how we read the pasuk, which is why Rabbi Akiva is saying bebigdoba. We read it bebigdoba, like a beged, like a garment that once he spread his cloak over her, once there was yi'ud, so then he can't ein shivchus achar ishus. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer says yesh aim limasoris. It depends how it's written, and there's no yud in it. The way it's written, it's bet gimel dalad vav bebagdo ba, right? Which means that when he betrayed her by selling her as a Amma Ivriya, so ein shifchus achar shifchus, and we say Rabbi Shimon holds like both of them. Yeshem lemikra, that bebigdoba, and therefore ein shifchus achar ishus, and also right, that's yeshem lemikra, and also yeshem lemasoris, which is bebagdoba, which is ein shifchus achar shifchus, and Rabbi Shimon says that both are relevant. Ein shifchus achar shifchus and ein shifchus achar ishus. All right, there you have it. There you have it. Alright. There you go. And shifchus achar shifchus and shifchus achar ishus. That is the opinion of Reb Shimon. Okay, let's go weiter. Alright. Where am I? Ba'i Rabba. As I said, we are now going to get into the question of Rabbi Rabba Bar Avua, Yi'ud nisuin osa o erisin osa. Does Yi'ud, right? So if you have a father who sells his daughter as an Amma Ivriya, the Adon has the option either to marry her himself or for his son to marry her. Okay, so by Rabbi Bar Avua, Yi'ud nisuin osa. So when he does Yi'ud, he says, Ariyat miyuedes li. And I think he doesn't have to give her a kesef Kiddushin or anything like that. It's meaning, the interesting, we're going to get into the kasha pretty soon about how exactly does, this Kiddushin work, exactly how does the payment fit into this that he gives to the father. But be'etzim, let's say that the Adon gives money to the father in order to purchase the Amma Ivriya. And what he purchased is the value of 6 years of service. He could at any point, as long as there's a Shavat Puta left, at any point he can convert that value into Kesef Kiddushin and be Miyayid her. And now the shal is that Erisin, is it Nisuin? So again, by Rabbi Bar Avua, Yihud Nisuin also, Erisin also. When an Adon or his son does Yihud, is that Erisin or Nisuin? Nafkemine, the Yosh of the Tamil Ulaf in Nidara. Nafkemina is, well, of course we know that after Nisuin, he can inherit her. He can, if he's a kohen, he could become tummy for her if she dies. He could be made for an Nadarim alone after Nisun, but that's not the case after Erisin. So what's the halacha? Is Yi'ud Erisin or is Yi'ud Nisun? So Tashma, come in here. Bibigdo ba. Okay, we saw the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Bibigdo ba. Once he spreads his beged over her, his garment, i.e., he does Yi'ud, Shuv, Eno, Rashai, Limochra. Bum. That once he does Yi'ud, once there is Yi'ud, so then the father can no longer sell her as an Amma Ivri, right? So Ein Shifchos Achar, essentially Yi'ud. So Zabune hu delo mezabin lo, so he can't sell her as an Amma Ivriya after Yi'ud. Ha-ya'ude miya'e lo, but he would be able to be Mekadesh her after Yi'ud. Okay? So we're saying that he can't, right? Ein shifchus achar, let's say Yi'ud for now, but there could be Ishus achar Yi'ud, right? He could be Mekabel Kesef Kiddushin even after Yi'ud. The Omart Nisuin Osa. Now, if you say that Yi'ud is Nisuin, Kevin Denise Shuv Ein Le'avia Rishusba. But once his daughter is married after Nisuin, the father, she's out of the house, right? Meaning, a father can accept Kesef Kiddushin for his daughter who's a Ketana if she gets divorced or widowed while betrothed, while in Arusa. So he could accept Kesef Kiddushin Nochamo. She goes back home. But once they get married after Nisuin, she's out. She's out. She's now married. She's got a husband. She's out of her father's domain. So therefore, after Nisuin, even if they get, divorced or if she becomes an Amana, he would not be able to accept Kesef Kiddushin. So Elalav, Shmamina, Erisin, Osa. So rather, it must mean that Yi'ud is just Erisin, is Kiddushin. And that is why, if she becomes an Amana or a Grusha from the, after Yi'ud, which is Be'etzim Erisin, the father can, while he ain't Shifchus Achar Ishus, but there is Ishus Achar Ishus, and he can still, sell her, he could still be Mekadesh her, Noachamo. So, Omar, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, or except Kesef Kiddushin, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, actually, this is no proof about Yi'ud, whether Yi'ud is Erisin or Kiddushin, Erisin or Nisuin, because Hacha b'Kiddushin de'al Maka'i, that actually, when it says Bebigdo ba is not talking about Yi'ud, it's just talking about regular old Kiddushin. V'achika Omar, and this is what the pasuk says, Kevin Shemasro Avia Lemishin Ischai B'Sherek Susa V'Onaso, that once the father is Mekadesh Kesef Kiddushin on her behalf, and she's now engaged to somebody who will be chayiv in Sherek Ksusa Vonasa. Those are the things that her husband is chayiv for his wife. Shera is food, Ksusa is, I think it's Taka Machlokas, but let's say Shera is food, Ksusa is clothing, Ve'onasa and Bia. So Bibigdoba is beged, clothing, i.e., once the father accepts Kesef Kiddushin, nothing to do with Yud, but Kesef Kiddushin, Shuv en Yochel Mochra, well, at that point, he can no longer sell her as a Shifcha, as Nama Ivriya, because Ein Shifchos Achar Ishus. Once he accepts Kesef Kiddushin, he can no longer sell her as Nama Ivriya, but this has nothing to do with Yi'ud. Tashma, come in here. Ein Mochra Likrovim, okay. Says the Tanakama that a father cannot sell his daughter as an Amma Ivriya to relatives, because you have to be able to do Yiyud. So for example, right, let's say he sells his daughter to his son to be an Amma Ivriya. So that's impossible, because his son would not be able to marry his sister, nor would his grandson, his son's son, be able to do Yiyud because it's his father's sister. So therefore, that it would be impossible for her to do, for there to be Yi'ud, and because it's impossible for there to be Yi'ud, she can't be sold as an Amma Ivriya, right? Because part of Amma Ivriya is that there's the option for Yi'ud. But, if it's one of the Arayas, where it would be impossible to do Yi'ud, so then it's not, she can't be sold as an Amma Ivriya. So again, Tashma coming here, in Mocher Lekrovim, that an Amma Ivriya cannot be sold to relatives because it's impossible, because you can't do Yiyud. But they said from Rabbi Eliezer, Mochra Lekrovim, that she could be sold to relatives, it's no problem. Vishavin Shemochra Amana Lekohen Gadol, but everybody, both the Tanakama and Rabbi Eliezer, agree that an Almana can be sold as an Amma Ivriya to a Kohen Gadol. Grusha v'chalutza the Kohen Hedget, and a Grusha v'chalutza can be sold as a Amma Ivriya to a Kohen Hedget. So, because in that case, right, Amana the Kohen Gadol, Grusha v'chalutza the Kohen Hedget, that's a lav. It's not, you you can't do it. It's a lav. It's also midoraisa. But Kiddushin is technically chal. It's technically tofes. So therefore, she could be sold as an Amma Ivriya if she's an Almana and he's a Kohen Gadol, or if she's a Grusha v'chalutza and he is a Kohen Hedget. So now, frek the Gemara, Hayalmona hechidami. How exactly can you have a situation where she's a Ketana, she's also an Almana, and she's being sold as a Amma Ivriya to a Kohen Gadol? How do these things add up, Bichlal? If it's talking about, well, she was a Ketana and she was Mekadesh herself, right? Meaning, without her father being involved, she got married to somebody as a Ketana. Almana Karila, would you call her an Almana? A Ketana doesn't have das. She can't just, get married on her own. Right? Her father can accept Kesef Kiddushin on her behalf, but she can't do it on her own, so she wouldn't be an Almana in that case. It wouldn't be a marriage. There wouldn't have been a marriage, Bichlal. Ve'ela de Kadsha Avia. Okay, so rather it must be talking about where her father was Mekadesher. Her father was Mekadesher, and then her father was Mekadesher, and then she became an Almana, right? The guy died, and now he wants to sell her as an Amma Ivriya. But Mimatzi Mizabinla, would he be able to sell her as an Amma Ivriya? But we said, Ein Shifchus Achar Ishus, that she can't be sold as a Shifcha after her father accepted Kesef Kiddushin on her behalf. So, Ein Shifchus Achar Ishus. So how, if she's an Almana, because her father accepted Kesef Kiddushin, how would she be able to be an Amma Ivriya to a Kohen Gadol? Ein Shifchus Achar Ishus. V'amr v'amram, Amr b'Yitzchak, Hacha b'Kiddushay Yiyud. Oh, so here we're talking about she's an Almana from Yiyud, that she was a Shifcha, that she was an Amma Ivriya, and then there was Yiyud, and then let's say the Adon was Miyayid her, they're now married, and then the Adon dies, and she's an Almana, and we're saying that in that case, they did Yiyud, and now she's an Almana, and in that case, her father would be able to sell her as an Amma Ivriya to a Kohen Gadol. And it's according to Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda de Omar, who says, Mos harishonos lav l'kiddushin nitnu. That says, Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, that when the Adon pays the father for his daughter, for the Amma Ivriya, the question, right, now we know that the Adon has the option of Yiyud, that he can bet and marry her. So the question is, the money that he pays the father for his daughter, the Amma Ivriya, is that Kesef Kiddushin, right? If he's paying the father, and there's the option of marriage, would that be considered Kesef Kiddushin? Or, like I mentioned earlier, is it possible that no, the money that the Adon pays the father is the money of the sale, right? For the Amma Ivriya. And what he buys is, he now has the value, right? He just paid, and what he received in return is the value of 6 years of service, and he can convert that value at a later point into Kiddushin. So now, and he can be Mekadesh with that. But the father didn't receive Kesef Kiddushin, the father received money for selling his daughter as an Amma Ivriya. So, okay, so Mos Arishonis, okay, fine. So the Alibud Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda is according to Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, the Amar Mos Arishonos lav the Kiddushin nitnu, that the money that was given to the father initially was not for Kiddushin. So it's not that the father accepted Kesef Kiddushin, the father accepted money for his daughter. And so therefore, right, the father, right, it wouldn't be a situation of Shivchus Achar Ishus. The father didn't accept Kesef Kiddushin for her. So v'i amart nisuin osa, and if you say that yi'ud is marriage, is nisuin, well, kevin shenises, once she was married, so shuv ein le'avia rishus ba, her father doesn't have any authority over her anymore. Once she was at one point a married woman after nisuin, so then her father wouldn't be able to sell her to a kohen gadol as an ama ivria. So ve'elamai erisin osa. So then what are you going to say? Then you're going to say that it must be Erisin. Okay? That it must be Erisin. That when the Adon is Miya'ed, his Amma Ivriya, so it's Be'etzem Erisin. And then if he dies, the father can then be seller to a Kohen Gadol as an Amma Ivriya. But Vishavin Shemochra, but what does it mean that everybody agrees, right, Tanakama, Rabbi Eliezer, everybody agrees that the father would be able to sell his daughter to a Kohen Gadol as an Amma Ivriya, even though she's an Almana. Technically. But I thought that a father cannot sell his daughter as an Amma Ivriya after she was already, right, married, even after Erisin. But so how must you explain this? Shiny Erisin didam, Erisin davia. It must be that her accepting, right, her Erisin is different than when her father accepts Kesef Kiddushin. That if her father accepts Kesef Kiddushin on her behalf, so then if she's an Amana or a Grusha, he can no longer sell her as a Shifcha. But in the case of Yehud, where we said that when the Adon, buys the Amma Ivriya from her father, the money that the father receives is not Kesef Kiddushin, it's Kesef for the transaction. And at a later point, the Adon now transfers the value of her service into Kiddushin. And that is Kiddushin that the father has no part in. It's between the Adon and her. And we're saying that in that case, if the Adon dies and she's now an Almana from the Erisin, the father at this point would be able to sell her to a Kohen Gadol as an Amma Ha'ivriya. That would not be an issue of Shivchus Achar Ishus, because he didn't accept the Kesef Kiddushin. It was between her and the Adon. So, but then Afilu Tema Nisuin Osa, Shiny Nisuin Tida, Nisuin De'avia. But then the Gemara suggests, but then why do we have to say that Yehud is Dafka Erisin? Can't we say the same thing by Nisuin? Can't we say that it's, that Yehud is Dafka Nisuin? And when the Adon is Miyayid, does Yehud, they are now married. And the reason why when he dies, the father could still sell her as a Shifcha, as an Amma Ivriya to a Kohen Gadol, is because he didn't, right, this had nothing to do with him. It was between her and the Adon. And you could say that maybe even after Nisuin, the father would still be able to sell her as an Amma Ivriya to a Kohen Gadol since he wasn't involved. So now the Gemara says, Hi, Mai. Bishlama Erisin me Erisin shiny. Look, I understand why Erisin, it depends who accepts it. Kelu, it depends. If the father is the one who accepts the Erisin, so then we can have one outcome, right? Ein shifchos achar ishos. But if she's the one accepting the Kiddushin, so then it's not the father, so then it doesn't affect kind of like the cheshbin of, is it, shifchos achar ishos? He wasn't involved in the Erisin. But when it comes to Nisuin, mi shiny, right? When it comes to Nisuin, it has nothing to do with who accepts the Kesef Kiddushin, right? It has to do with, Nisuin means that she's a married woman now. She's no longer in the house of her father. She's no longer in the domain of the father. She was married to a husband. He simply just doesn't have any ability to sell her as an Amma Ivriya anymore, right? So therefore, it makes sense to say that Yehud is Erisin Osa, and because she was the one involved in the Erisin, nothing to do with the father, that is why when she's no longer, right, she's now Almana now, the father, since he wasn't involved in the Kiddushin, it wouldn't be considered a situation of shifchus achar ishus, which would be a problem, and therefore he can still sell her as a ama ivria to a kohen gadol. Now, Rav Nachman by Yitzchok, the Amar Afilu Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Maos Harishonos LeKiddushin Nitnu v'May Mukim Lo. But then says the Gemara that we're going to see where do we see this? Maybe even on this stuff or the next stuff. That according to Rav Nachman by Yitzchak, he understands that according to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, we had said a few minutes ago that according to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, when the Adon gives the money to the father to purchase his daughter as an Amma Ivriya, that money is not Kesef Kiddushin. We want to say that according to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. That money is not Kesef Kiddushin. That money is for the sale of his daughter. That then in return he gets the value of her work. He could transfer that value into Kiddushin, the Adam. But according to Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, who actually understands that, according to Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, actually the money that the Adon gives to the father is Kiddushin. Well, if that's the case, then how can you have a situation of the father selling his daughter as an almana, the Kohen Gadol, for an Amma Ivriya? What's the situation of the almana, right? If he accepted the Kesef Kiddushin, which we're saying that that the Adon who buys his daughter as an Amma Ivriya, it's Kesef Kiddushin be'etzim, so it's going to be Shifchus Achar Ishus. How is that okay? So fine. So my mukimla Rabbi the Amar Shifchus hu Tilomati Mizaben Aval Shifchus Achar Ishus Motzi Mizaben Lo. So this is according to Rabbi Eliezer, who says again, right? So this is according to Rabbi Eliezer, who we saw right earlier. We saw the machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer said Bibagdoba, that he says that you can't have Shifchus Achar Shifchus. But bibigdoba, which is how Rabbi Akiva learned it, which was ein shifchus achar ishus, that is okay. So again, mukim lak Rabbi Eliezer the amar l'shifchus achar shifchus hu d'lo matzi mizabin la. Father cannot sell his daughter for shifchus achar shifchus, for the shifchus achar ishus matzi mizabin la, and therefore, even if the father accepted the money as kesef kiddushin, it would be shifchus achar ishus, which according to Rabbi Eliezer would be okay. And in that's the case where you can have an almana l'kohen gadol as a Amo Ivriya. Friends, that was Daf Yud Ches of Masechta Kiddushin, another kind of involved daf over here. We learned all sorts of halachis about Eved Ivri, how they go free, the differences between Eved Ivri, Amar Ivriya, Yiyud, right? We said that, in what cases can an Eved Ivri be sold twice as an Eved Ivri? We saw a very interesting situation, right? We said that Be'etzim, the only situation where an Eved Ivri could be sold as an Eved Ivri by Bezdin is if he stole the exact amount of his worth, which is a very interesting thing. Then we got into this whole concept of, right, shifchus achar shifchus, ishus achar ishus, shifchus achar ishus, yeshem lemikra, yeshem musar. There was a lot of interesting stuff on this daf. Ended up being kind of technical, but I feel like these dafs recently have kind of had that, like not super big, but a lot of like technical stuff on them. Friends, I was Daf Yud Ches of Masechta Kiddushin. Hope you enjoy. Peace out.